My name is Chris, and we have Tanisha with us today who's going to be leading this program. And before we get started, I just want to do a book shout out. This book is an ebook that's available through Overdrive. It's called The Best of Instructables. There's a lot of DIY projects in there, including 3D printing projects, among other crafts. You can see a lot of pictures there on the front. There's a lot of fun things to do in it. You can download this as an ebook from Overdrive. And if you'd like to see all of our ebooks in our different collections, you can go to hcplc.org/ebooks. And now I am happy to hand things over to Tanisha, who is going to lead this great program. I'm going to turn off the screen, turn off my camera, and all right, Tanisha, here we go.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. So thank you for joining me today. So my intro is going to be really short because I'm ready to show you guys the 3D printer. So the format for this program today is going to be a little bit different. So instead of holding your questions at the end, please feel free to shoot them into the questions tab whenever you'd like throughout the program. Chris is ready and waiting. He's going to be asking me these questions because, as you will soon learn with 3D printing, there's a lot of waiting. So while we're waiting for the printer to do its thing, we can be chatting about how 3D printing works, the purposes of it, and everything else like that. So the first question you may be asking yourself is, what is 3D printing? So for those of you who are not quite familiar with 3D printing, the official definition is quite simple. It is turning a 2D designed object, so something that you would design on your computer. So for those of you who attended Tinkercad yesterday, the item that we designed in Tinkercad, the little house that we did, that would be something that you would be able to 3D print. So it's turning a 2D object into a 3D object. So let's go ahead and dive into the fun of 3D printing. So I am going to turn just want to make sure I got that right, my screen around here so we can look at the printer. All right, so I'm going to get up so you guys can really see it. So this is our 3D printer that we will be working with today. So this is called a Lulzbot, but there are a ton of different types of printers out there. So a little bit about the actual printer itself and all of the different elements. So on the top here, what you see is what's called the filament. So the filament is the type of material that is used to create your 3D printed object. For our purposes today, we're using a type of filament called PLA, which is this type of non-toxic plastic. So we're going to be making our 3D object out of plastic. And let me zoom in a little bit more. So I forgot my little, I'm going to use my little butter knife here that we use to get items off of the 3D printer. So this element here, this whole big thing right here where the gears and everything are, is called the extruder. So the extruder is what heats the filament to print your object. And that's going to make a lot more sense here in a minute. So the extruder is the part where the filament comes out of, and that extruder is heated to 200 degrees Celsius, which is about 392 degrees Fahrenheit. It is very, very hot. So that is not something, and I already preheated it, so that is not something that I want to touch. Hence why I used my little pointing object here to point to it, because that is really hot. And here, I'm going to go down a little bit further, is the build plate. So the build plate is where is the object that the 3D printed item is built on. So again, this build plate is also heated. So that's why I got to use my little pointing tool. So the build plate is heated to 60 degrees Celsius, which comes out to be about 140-ish degrees Fahrenheit. So that's also pretty hot as well. Not as hot as the extruder, but still pretty hot. So those are the main parts of the 3D printer itself. So I am going to now position myself to my computer, because you have to have a computer to print your 3D printed object. And I apologize there. Just got to adjust my seat here real quick. So here, what I have on my screen is piece of software called Cura. And this is where we go to render our 3D printed objects. So let me just position that here. So Chris, let me know if you can't see everything very clearly. I know it's having a little bit of issues focusing, at least on my end. So let me know if you need me to zoom in or zoom out. So what we will be printing today, and I hope you guys can see that, is an octopus. So we are going to be printing a little teeny tiny octopus today. So I went ahead and scaled it down to, oops, I got to actually click on my little octopus. I went ahead and scaled it down 50%. So you can see there all the different dimensions. And for those of y'all who attended my Tinkercad class yesterday, remember what I said about millimeters? Yeah, so a lot of 3D printing rendering software also uses the metric system as well, as you notice with the Celsius too. So they definitely use the metric system. So there, I went ahead and knocked it down to 50% because the larger your item, the longer it takes to print. And so we're a little bit limited on time. So I had to make sure that our item would print with enough time. So I'm gonna move my screen over a little bit more. And if you see on the bottom here, according to the rendering, it's going to take 15 minutes to print. So let's take a look at some of the other elements of setting up our 3D printer. So you'll notice some important terms here. One of the first important terms is infill. So what infill means is how much your item, your 3D printed object is filled in. So if we were to have 100% infill, that means that your 3D printed item would be 100% full on the inside. However, that takes up a lot of filament. So we knock that down to 20%. So what that does is it builds an interior structure that allows for your item to be 3D, but doesn't need to be completely filled in. You'll also see something here called generate support. So if you were building like an action figure or something with arms or something with items like elements floating in the air, like our house that we built in Tinkercad yesterday, where the eaves, like the roof, was hanging over a little bit, you are able to create supports in the software so that the 3D printed object is built with supports that can easily be snapped off. You'll also see next to the term build plate adhesion, something called a skirt. So what a skirt does, what the skirt does is essentially clears the nozzle. So I'm gonna head back over to our 3D printer here. So remember, this little piece here is the nozzle. What it does is it clears the nozzle so that your 3D printed object can be printed a little bit more clean. So I'm gonna head over to the monitor screen so we can see some of the different facts and figures about how we're printing. So so what I said, like I said before, I did a little bit of prep work before we got started here. So the extruder, which is the hot end, is already heated to that 200 degrees Celsius, and our build plate is already heated to 60 degrees Celsius. So that work's already been done. So we already did a couple of things here to get our printing started. So what I am going to go ahead and let's see if there's anything else fun to look at here. So these are other elements that you can use to control your 3D printer. So if you were testing it out, if we had a little bit more time, we could see how you could test it out. You can move the different axes around. Actually, let's do that a little bit. So I'm gonna make that move length 10, and I can toggle back and forth. But you're able to move the extruder around using your computer. So I know you can't see it, but right now, I can move it to the left, I can move it to the right, I can move my build plate as well if I need to, and I can also move my Z-axis, so I can move the extruder up and down. All right, so gonna go ahead and prop my iPad on my little tripod here. because we're about to 3D print something. All right, so let me just get this situated here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get my octopus started. So I just hit start print on the screen. And let's see what happens. So right now, the extruder is moving to level the build plate. So the first thing that's going to happen is the extruder is going to park it there for a few minutes, and let me go back to our screen here, so that the extruder can cool down to 140 degrees Celsius. So you may be asking, but it was already preheated. Why is it doing that? So the reason why it's cooling it down is because the filament, let me go back to the printer, has to retract a little bit so that the build plate can be leveled. So what's about to happen here is the build plate is going to hit all 4, 2, 3, and 4 of these corners. So it has to level itself on those 4 corners, and that filament has to be clear so that it can do that. So at this point, I'm going to put my iPad down so we can park it there. And Chris, let me know if there are any questions in the questions tab real quick here, because this is a good time to ask some questions because we got a minute before this this extruder is going to start moving.
One question right now is, how hot does the, I guess, extruder get?
So the extruder does not exceed 200 degrees Celsius. I think that you could, if you really wanted to, make it go a little bit hotter. But the thing is you want your filament to be pliable, but you don't want it to be molten, if that makes sense. So if it's too liquidy, then it's not going to stick together. But if it's, you know, liquid enough that it can build, then that's all it really needs. So it just needs to be hot enough to kind of make that filament pliable. So let's see what's happening here. All right, so now the extruder is moving down, and I don't see, let me get in a little bit closer. So you can see there's a little white strip there. And what it's going to do is it's essentially wiping its feet right now. So it's going to wipe any of that excess filament off of the extruder. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit now so we can see what it's doing. So now, like, remember what I said about it leveling itself. So now it's going to hit all 4 of those corners. So it's going to hit that first corner. Let me move that a little bit. So it's going to hit that first corner. And it's going to hit that second corner. Hitting the second corner. Hitting the third corner. So the build plate needs to level itself so that whatever object you're printing is nice and even. So it has to make sure that it's hitting the build plate at the right angle. And I may not have mentioned it before, but the reason why the build plate itself is heated is because it makes it easier for you to peel the object off of it when it's done. All right. And so now we're going to wait here again. Chris, did you have any other questions while we wait for it to heat back up?
Yeah. Someone would like to know, how can you choose the colors?
So choosing a color is kind of like choosing a crayon. So with our 3D printers that we have here at the library, we ordered, so just like, you know, buying crayons at the store, ordering crayons off of a website, we ordered a whole lot of colors. So the color that I decided to use today was yellow. Yellow is one of my favorite colors, and it shows up really well on the camera as as the object is being 3D printed. All right, and I'm gonna head back over to the computer here so we can see what's happening on the screen. And so we can see here that it is heating back up. So it's going up and up and up. And it's going to get going here in just a minute.
We have another question. Would you like to
Go
hear it?
ahead. Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So they want to know how you can choose the shape. And I'm guessing the shape of the design.
Absolutely. I'm going to answer that here in just a minute. I just want to zoom in so you all can see what's happening. All right, so right now it's drawing that skirt to clear out that extra filament. You kind of can't see it right now because it's doing its job. It's clearing out that extra filament. And I know there's a really bad shadow from the extruder itself. And you can kind of make out the beginning of the design. Let me see if I can get up and make it a little bit better for y'all. All right, so you can see that the octopus is just beginning to form on the build plate. All right, and I'm gonna put this back down while we answer some more questions. Chris, can you repeat that question for me, please?
They want to know how you can choose the shape. I'm
Is a wonderful, yes, that's a wonderful question. So you can print any design that you'd like. So let's say that you attended our Tinkercad class yesterday and you made a 3D design, you know, like the little house we did yesterday, or you created a 3D bookmark. So you could export your 3D, print your 3D bookmark as a file type that's called STL. And then just like you would with any other type of file or any type of attachment, I'm going to go back to my screen here. Sorry, guys, for the jerky camera work.
I put a link in the chat section to Tinkercad for those of you who don't know what it is. You can see it there. Also, I put in a few definitions that Tanisha explained earlier. So feel free to take a peek there while Tanisha is working here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. So you can see on the top of the screen there where it says file, just like you would with any other type of file that you're opening and any other type of program, you would open your file like we did with our octopus here. So I opened up the file and it would show up on your screen like it did here, and then you're able to print it. Let's see what's happening with our octopus. All right, it's doing pretty good, doing pretty good. So you guys can see how it's printing, and I'm gonna try to get in there as close as possible. But basically, the minute that the filament hits the build plate, it's already hardening back up again. So I could theoretically, do not try this at home. If you ever get your hands on the 3D printer, do not do this at home. I could, if I wanted to, touch that filament and it would be hard to the touch. However, like I mentioned before, that extruder is 200 degrees Celsius, which is close to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which for those of you guys, I don't know if any of y'all out there are cooks or you cook, that's as hot as your oven. So it is very, very hot right now, which is why I'm staying pretty far away from it. But it's building the elements of the octopus here. And let's see what's going. We're going to hop back over to the screen. So let's see what's happening on that screen here. So on the bottom here, where it says printing, you can see how long it's been printing for. So right now, it says that the print job is probably going to take 18 minutes. Or actually, it's a little bit off there. I think that might be from the one I did before. My apologies, guys. But this is about the approximate time that it may take, and it's about 33% done. So it's a third of the way done. So let me hop back over there. So, and I'm also going to zoom out a little so you can see how all of the elements of the printer are working together. So you can see here that the extruder is moving on that the X, the Y and the Z axis, and then the build plate is moving on the x-axis. I hope I didn't get that wrong, but it is moving across your x, your y, and your z-axis. Sorry, kids, I've been out of grade school for a little bit, so I had to think about that in my head for a minute to remember which one was the x, y, and the z-axis. But it's moving around there.
Someone's asking, and I know you already mentioned this, but we can go over it again. They want to know what they're calling the material dough, as in like a cooking dough. What is the material that you're using?
It is called PLA plastic. So it is a sort of non-toxic pliable plastic. So 3D printers use all types of stuff. There are 3D printers that print in chocolate, which I think is really fun. There are 3D printers that can print in candy. There are 3D printers that can print in aluminum, rubber, all types of different materials. But most of the hobby type 3D printers, which is the type that the library has or the type that a makerspace may have, usually use some sort of plastic to print in. So I'm going to move my screen up here a little bit. So this is the roll. So it kind of looks like really thick fishing wire. So it comes in, it's plastic, but it comes in really thin lines of plastic, goes through that extruder to melt a little bit, and then comes out the other end of the extruder. So what we're using to print in is plastic.
All right. Someone wondered if you could, is it possible to turn the light on for the camera?
I don't think, unfortunately, I do not think that I'm able to do it and go to webinar. I'm going to put this down so you guys aren't like seeing it jerk around a lot. Let me see if I can adjust the light here on my end. I know I have like 3 lamps over here and I have a horrible glare off of the extruder. So let me see if I can adjust it here. I'm going to come around to the other side. See if it looks better on the other side. Not really.
That's okay. Yeah, is it the tablet that you're using? Is there a light on that? Turn on? Yeah, we could try that. Just see.
Does turn on the flash on the tablet?
Yeah, is that possible?
I'm about to find out.
Yeah, I know sometimes if it's a certain amount of light on.
All right.
If not, that's okay, but we can try.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that here real quick. Chris, tell me if my picture goes out when I do this.
Okay.
Is my picture still on?
It is not. It is paused. So
it's paused.
That's okay.
We learned. Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
This is our first. Let's see what happens when we use a tablet program, because unfortunately the laptop isn't 3D printer friendly. So now we know.
Someone would like to know, what is the longest 3D printing design you've ever printed?
Ooh, that is a good question, and I have an answer for that. So a few years ago, and we've done some really awesome projects that I'll go back to that the library has printed. So one of the really cool projects that I was able to be a part of is we printed a 3D model of Tampa City Hall. And it was printed in pieces because the build plate was way too little to print this entire thing in one piece, but all of the pieces together took about 12 hours. The longest continuous print I've ever done is 6 hours. And that poor printer was really tired after it was done. But the longest print was the 3D printed Tampa City Hall. Something really cool that the library did with our 3D printers is, as of recently, I don't know if you all are out there are familiar with the term PPE, or personal protective equipment. So back when the pandemic was really in full swing, back in March and April, when people were in dire need of PPE, personal protection equipment supplies, the library was able to volunteer our printers in order to print PPE supplies. So we printed the pieces of the face shields, we printed little plastic thingies that people could put around their heads so that the masks weren't cutting into their heads or cutting into their ears. So the library was able to take part of that, and it was something really cool that we were able to do.
Yeah, we were happy to do that.
Yeah, so that was something else. Anything else?
Yeah, someone wants to know if you ever burned your hand on a 3D printer.
Um, well, I don't know how I should answer that question. You know what? I'm going to be honest. I have, which is why I was using my pointing tool
Yes.
to point at it. So you can see here, there goes my pointing tool again. So I have, and it is
Safety.
very hot, and it's very hot, and it hurts, and it leaves a mark. So
Yeah.
that's why I am very careful about putting my hands anywhere near the 3D near that extruder. Now, something to remember about the 3D printer is the only heated elements of this particular printer are the build plate and the extruder. So everything else is fine to touch, but those two elements alone are pretty hot. So I would keep my hands far away from them.
Okay. All right. We do have another question.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know, where can I get a 3D printer?
So you are able to order them just like anything else. You're able to buy one online. They are very expensive. Just buyer beware, they are not cheap. However, there are a lot of different places around the community that do offer 3D printing services. So unfortunately, a lot of them are not available right now because of our current situation. The library at one point did offer 3D printing services. However, we scaled that back quite a few years ago, and then offered it as part of our programming. Like if you attended a program, you're able to 3D print. But unfortunately, because of our current circumstances, that's not something that we're able to do at the moment. But if you do like a quick Google search of like 3D printing Tampa, you may be able to find some facilities that may be offering some in-person 3D printed services for a nominal fee. And if you do another Google search of 3D printers, you can see ones that are available to purchase.
All right. I see our octopus is coming along there. We do have another question. Have you ever taken this printer apart?
I personally have not. However, there are people that work with us who have. Let me actually move in a little bit. So you see here this gear up here, and if you see some of these elements, especially these lime green elements, those are actually 3D printed. So parts of the 3D printer are 3D printed themselves. So it is entirely possible to take these apart. Again, there are people in our within the library system who have taken it apart to make repairs. From what I understand, it's something that's simpler than you would think to do, but we tend to like to keep them together and keep them, put together. Only taking them apart when we have to make like a quick repair.
And I know, like I'll mention again, the modeling software that Tanisha mentioned, Tinkercad, in the chat section. We put the website for tinkercad.com. For those of you who weren't in attendance yesterday, it's a free service application that you just have to sign up for. You probably need your parents' help to do that, but it's really great, and you can design all sorts of interesting things. So if you want to take a look at the chat section there's some information about that. And also feel free to ask more questions because we have some more time, and
yeah,
we're
let's
happy
see. Yeah, let's see where we're at in the time. So we have about 5 minutes left, and it's about 88% done. Chris, while we're waiting for this to finish up, do you want to hop over to our last page of our slides so we can just share some other links and stuff?
Yeah, we do have one more question before I do that.
Yeah.
Someone just asked, how many pieces are there in a 3D printer?
Hundreds. There's a lot of pieces. There's a lot of different elements to a 3D printer. So there's hundreds of little pieces doing their thing, all together to make your 3D printed object.
Okay, I believe my screen is up.
It is.
Okay. All right, let's bring up our contact information. So you can contact the library at the number here on the screen, or you can go online and contact us at hcplc.org/about/contact. Also, you can learn about great programs such as this one at hcplc.org/events. And also, just like at the top of the program, we recommended the Instructables book. There's an Instructables website that you can go to and get lots of great DIY ideas, and that's at www.instructables.com. So yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you so much for your help today. I know you had to do some heavy lifting.
Oh, no.
So I really appreciate it. All right. So we are about done. Okay. So let's see what happened. So I'm going to zoom in here. So now our, that was good timing too. It was just in time. So now our extruder is coming up. And let me zoom in to our finished product. So there is our octopus.
So cute. So cute.
Let me get some of that extra filament out the way. So there we go. There is our octopus. So there is our 3D printed object. And we are just at our time. So let me put my iPad down. Thank you guys so much. You guys are actually guinea pigs too, because this is our first live iPad given class. So thank you so much for bearing with us as we figured out how to do the iPad. And let me get my hand out the way. So thank you guys so much for attending. And again, if you have any very last minute questions, we got like a minute or so left. So anything at the very end, anything last minute. Thank you guys so much for attending. Again, events, go to our events page to see what else we got going. And thanks so much. Chris, any other things before we go?
No, I'll throw our slide back up just one last time in case folks want to get a hold of us. You can contact us at that number again and at the website, and our calendar is there. And of course, the Instructables site. But this was great. Tanisha, great job. Thank you for walking us through that interesting process of 3D printing.
Fantastic. All right, guys. So that's it for us. You guys all have a great day, and thanks for joining us. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.